Welcome back, everybody. Episode 44 of the Leonis Report, back again with a ton of new news. I know we waited the day yesterday because we knew that the new patch notes were dropping. We wanted to hear that first. And yes, we got a ton to cover. But before we get into it, hello, JB. How's it going, man?
Going pretty good. Yeah, not used to doing it Tuesday night, but yeah, if this kind of, we were just saying if this kind of becomes the new normal in terms of when the news drops, maybe it makes more sense. So we'll see what happens. Other than that, it's school break for my son this week, so got some activities planned for the rest of the week, and looking forward to it. How about you? How was the weekend?
It was good. Long weekend, just some chores. I'm doing a bunch of like remodeling on our hallways and painting doors, door trim, and floor trim and whatnot. But in the spare time, I have been playing an exceptional amount of Pal World with the girlfriend, and Persona 3 Reload has taken over most of my time. So it's been a lot of Genshin Impact is always on there, but it's been a good gaming weekend.
I'm surprised you didn't say Helldivers 2. I've been hearing about that game, and I've been kind of wanting to get into it.
I've heard none of it. That's actually the first time I've ever heard of it, to be honest. You just mentioning it.
Yeah, it's almost kind of got some Starship Troopers vibes. Like
Hmm.
I don't know. It's everything I've seen of it looks cool, and like basically like the multiplayer aspect is everybody's kind of working together on objectives and opening up like new parts of the galaxy that you're kind of all collectively working towards that. So that part sounded kind of interesting too.
Hmm.
Like a
Okay.
lot like a live service game, kind of progressing the galaxy together as a player base.
I
That
like it.
sounded interesting.
I will definitely look into that. We're always looking for stuff to throw in the backlog and play together, particularly if it's a multiplayer function. So good stuff. Nice. Well, before we, or I guess now jumping into things, there is a lot to cover. Let me briefly go through a whole bunch of it. We have the Lunacestus Kitone. We're going to talk about our initial impressions, a whole bunch of questions around her. We have Veritas of the Water being released here. We got a bunch of new equipment and equipment upgrades. We'll briefly go through and see if there's anything particularly noteworthy. We're getting the new vision card for Kitone and Lynx, or Kitone in particular that's coming out here. We have 3 different limit burst upgrades, raid boss revival. We will be doing extra special like we normally do, a little bit of a showcase here versus Vivi Helena. We've done videos before where we kind of talked about like team building tips. We did a video back on like Monolight and when Helena first dropped, but there's still a ton of Helena Vivi throughout, like let's say ranks 15 to 50 in Guild Wars. It's kind of turned already in the top end of the game, but there's still a fair amount of people that are struggling to find that, you know, sweet spot of teams. And so we have a couple, I think 4 to show in total. We'll probably do another 4 next week, but we'll be doing a big showcase there. We have the Final Fantasy 13 collab. We'll talk a little bit about Fang and a little bit about the limit break upgrades when they come to global in a few weeks. We'll cover that later. But then we also have a couple Q&A if we have the time for it. So the first topic here kicking things off is Lunacestus Kitone new strike dark unit. 6K paid option like Shadow Links last week. What are you thinking about Kitone? Is this a character? I know you did a pretty comprehensive video with her versus Links as like a comparison. What do you think about Kitone coming out?
I like it. I mean, another 70 cost unit, just like Lynx, just like you were saying. The I one thing that I don't like, in terms of the monetization, it's good for like the paying players, but I don't like that we've gone backwards in terms of like the free Visior options with, these units, you know, they're not you're not able to do that 9 step for the 18K Visior like we've been able to with Shawls and Lucio and some of these other we've kind of had become accustomed to that over the last, year or so. And I don't think that these units are better than the last handful that we've gotten in terms of Raf, Lucio. In fact, not even close to, I mean, to be honest,
Yep.
they're good. They're better than that 70 cost rating, and I think that they can get a spot in teams, but I don't think that they're, blowing anybody away, that they are worth, 40K Visior to pity them. So that's kind of like the pre-heading before we kind of get into the details, just my general feeling
I agree with
on the
that.
banner.
I agree with that. Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on that either because, on the one hand, as a big long time spender, it's nice to guarantee and lock in a price for a unit as opposed to having to pity them and buy all the vids to do that. On the other hand, you're absolutely correct. Them being more expensive is a tough pill to swallow on that, not paying part of the player base, basically losing out on a unit entirely.
So, I mean, in terms of the kits, she's got kind of an interesting thing where they have kind of built on a little bit of like what Perrine was doing with the CT up on almost all of her attacks. Do provide CT or agility in some way, and then the self haste on the limit burst as well. So she's really all about the speed factor and trying to enable the double turns to just kind of kill you with speed basically.
It's worked in the past for a variety of units where there's some units where it was oppressive. Someone like King Bradley comes to mind. Then there's units that I think of like Vivi, where he has technically a CT up ability on that double, but like you don't really feel that one as much, I don't think. And so CT abilities have always been a game changer because it completely flips turn order on its head. And this game, at its simplest, just boils down to like how many turns do you get? Because you can pretty reliably like predict how many turns it takes to kill a unit, give or take a couple, and that extra turn or two does absolutely make the difference. It throws in an element of randomness sometimes too, where you can't really game plan for that aspect of things no matter what you build for VCs. Very interesting though, because they've given her both a combination of like CT altering things, but also some agility percent altering things, both for herself and enemies, which we've talked about is conceptually hard to like wrap your head around because the CT bar, the fill gauge, has so many components that go into it. It's hard to really quantify the impact of that, but you'll know it when you see it. And yeah, she's got a great Select 2 Dispel as well. That's her real main bread and butter, in my opinion. The rest of it is really just like death by a thousand cuts, in my opinion. There's not like a ton of outstanding utility. She's got a single on target barrier break. There are some things to like in terms of obviously the strike crush, 60% strike resistance crush. That's new. Most strike imperils are a flat percent, so to add that wrinkle into things, I particularly like that for strike units that don't have any kind of good strike res pen. And I think of someone like Ed Elric, for instance. You get a unit that can crush the enemy strike res. That does wonders for characters like him, and obviously characters like Alphonse, who are former staples. Um, but yeah, I'll pause there. It's a really good 70 cost unit. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of sub jobs, she has a couple of slashing sub jobs with the Knight and Nightblade. I think Nightblade has held up relatively well. Like it has a good passive with the accuracy, and the buff with Pierce and Missile can be, like a once in a while interesting thing. She does get Drain Rush as well for the another chaining attack. So she's got 3-hit slash and three-hit strike attack, which is really nice actually for PVE chaining.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. I mean, she's got some callbacks to her original kit where she's got the Immortal Spirit online just passively from her passive, and then she is essentially trying to drain HP, actively during battle to kind of ideally stay above that 70% threshold, so she can't be one shot. I don't think she's incredibly bulky. I mean, I think she's bulky enough that she can take a couple of hits and then potentially have a chance to drain something back. And then, I mean, she has an AoE, and she's got the select two. She can if she's able to hit multiple targets, she can, drain back a fair amount of HP as long as she has that buff online. So I don't know. I think that range is definitely one of the biggest issues for the unit,
Yep.
and I think they tried to make up for that with the enhanced mobility that she has access to. It's kind of a double-edged sword though, because you're trying to walk that line of, are you getting out too far ahead that you're baiting an enemy and all of a sudden they're whacking you too hard and you can't recover. But on the other hand, if you're not mobile enough and you're lagging behind, not really making enough impact on the battle, that's also an issue. So I think that's going to be one of the bigger challenges. This issue is trying to find that right balance of the mobility and the speed, and putting her in a good place to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, her limit break is 4 squares away, but her main kit is the unit scaling ones are max 3 squares away. Her little cross shape gets up to the 4, and you're right. 3 squares away is very short range for a unit. I'm still coming around to whether or not I like the idea or not because there have been a slew of units in succession. Obviously, like Vivi and Helena come to mind, but like Zidane is one of them. A2 is one of them. I think Astrius technically is that I've noticed the downsides of that extra range where it might seem nice, but when your best ability is on a 6 range away, it really does limit you for what you can do for buff rotations, what you can do for bait potential. So there's like a little like theory crafter brain at, that's like, no, keep it short range. Maybe you get a TMR buff in there. Maybe you can do something else. Like there's seems to be more upside because you can never like turn that toggle off of the long range ability because it's typically their best ability. And so yeah, Kitone is an interesting one that the mobility is definitely there. The short range is definitely an issue, but I do wonder too. Like she's got a move one, jump one buff on her main sub job. I don't necessarily think you'd have to use it, but I'll be honest. I don't love the Knight abilities. The Night Blade abilities are okay. The Drain Rush is really the standout to your point, but in a mono strike team, she might not use it all that often. It would really come down to the damage calcs. But yeah, regardless, it's a fun character that I think does have some good opportunities to make waves.
I do actually really like the night buff. I think it's called Divine Healing for
Yes,
her because it does give her that 30 healing power, which can help her out with her drain attacks. And then the debuff, for the debuff resistance for elemental is pretty nice as well.
I'm gonna go and 100% agree. That was actually one of the first demerits when I looked at this kit of the whole healing power aspect, that she didn't have any. A lot of these characters as of late do get healing power as part of that job over concept. I completely missed the fact that that has that buff on it, so that is nice.
Yeah, I think that's probably her best third buff, I think, unless you really do need that mobility. That gives you kind of like the mini quicken with the mobility there from her main job sub. That's pretty good too, but I don't know if I would necessarily always trust the AI to use that one.
That's a
Really
good
good
point.
for manual though.
That's a really good point. Good point. And there is something interesting about her. We'll bring up the TMR. You brought up a good point as a talking point. It's an 8 agility TMR here. Now, obviously, there's an ability on it that I actually do like the ability as well. But this is a definite noteworthy thing that pops off because agility TMRs are so highly coveted for turn order, for being super speedy. Is it worth pulling the TMR to you? That this is something that I know you'd considered. I
It's a tough one. I mean, is it worth 6K paid just for if you're not that interested in the unit? I would say no,
would agree.
to be honest with you.
I would agree.
I don't think one agility is worth 6K paid. If you like the unit, if you have a good fist box and you can use the unit as well, I think it's a nice bonus. Certainly it is tempting, right? Because we haven't ever seen an increase in agility since the day one of the game where Ziz's bells came right out of the gate with 7 agility. And that has been the bar that has been for 4 years now until this unit. So it's certainly interesting. And I think we have been seeing a general trend recently with the TMRs. It's something we talked about maybe a month or two ago that we were like, maybe that's somewhere that they would finally go. The TMRs are looking really bad in comparison to recent party buffs.
Yep.
But I feel like with Lucio's TMR, with this TMR, with some of the others coming out recently, that's kind of changing a little bit. And I feel like they are getting better.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely not worth the pull alone. This TMR is very good, but not worth the cost of purely the money or the viz. But yeah, this is a definite step in the right direction. That one extra agility point does have some really like fun like team building upsides where you have a couple. At the end of the day, all you want is some staggering amounts of agility. Where we have a couple that have 7, a couple that have like 2 and 3. You get another one that has 8 now. Obviously, from like a turn rotation standpoint, if your character is faster than the enemy character, sometimes that one agility is the difference. Quite often it can be. So yeah, this is a real good TMR, but I would agree it's not a pull decision.
And definitely nice that it's an accessory as well. So if you were going for the units, definitely this is like a gravy, like cherry on the top that you don't mind picking this one up.
Definitely. And one thing about this character, we had a real fun debate a little earlier in the Howl Discord where Ram9 was very high on Kitone, that his statement was that he thinks that Kitone is as good or better than 2P. And like immediately like I went into like berserker mode because I couldn't even fathom the concept. Now he's not here to defend his point, so I'll argue in good faith. But it was a really fun talking point because there's obviously, you got 2 different strike units. They have a lot of similarities that they both have like a 50% physical barrier. They have a follow-up attack mechanic where they buff and then they initiate that. They have different imperils to differing degrees where, Kitone does have the good lord, what is it? The 60% strike crush. I feel like there was another one. I could be wrong, but 2P has the 38% imperil flat out and the 50% AoE crush. So there was some fun to debate. I don't know where you want to lead on this topic, but what do you think? 2P or Kitone? One better than the other, about equal?
I don't. I mean, I think 2P is clearly better than this unit. I don't think it's that close. I think that it's debatable, though. I think that in certain situations, this unit is going to be able to look really good when she is able to pull off those double turns where she gets the haste and then the CT up comes in. All of a sudden, she's lapping you, or maybe taking 3 turns to your 1 or 2. So I think we're definitely going to see those replays in those one-on-one situations where it's like, oh man, we just completely lost this one when it looked like we were going to win. On the other hand, I don't think it's going to be something that you can rely on and consistent in that regard. That 2P, you know exactly what you're getting. You know that, she is going to disrupt the enemy. She's going to dive in. She's going to get you that AoE crush. And that has been so valuable for the teammates that you put her with, like the Perrines, like the Bradleys, like the Lucios and whoever. So that on top of like their survivability is different, but I think it's at least comparable. They have different ways of surviving, but I don't know. I think that's in the cost limited situation. I would definitely like having Kitone around. You're not going to be able to fit in Perrine, Alaya, and 2P on the same team when it's a 250 type rule set, or even 270. So that is where Kitone has, much higher value, where you can fit her into those lower cost formats. And I think that's the design, to be honest.
Definitely. And the thing for me, I know one big edge that 2P has for me is the evasion angle. And I know we've kind of been like, she's not a top tier evasion, but she's very evasive. It's the kind of evasion you can't go in and just be okay with without game planning for. It adds a completely different dimension in terms of the survivability, because you do have to bring that RNG into it. Two, it changes how you approach that team in terms of your own team building. But there's also like a bunch of counter abilities. Like she's got her follow up that's based off her evasion. That's a ton of extra damage that I'm still slightly hesitant about some of these units that rely on their self healing as one of their main attributes for survival. Where, there's certain brawl characters like Eld and like A2 who have it, but these are also like 80 and 90 defense pen units. These are units with way higher average AoE and unit res. They have way more in terms of like potential damage output because of some of the duality of how big the range of their attacks is. You mentioned the select 2, but it's a select 2 in a pretty small diamond, so you may not get the same heal back. And so I go back to like getting burned of like Howlet back in the day when he first came out, or Resol when she first came out, where these units that they've obviously created this heal mechanic, and it just ends up like not being enough because their overall effective HP just isn't really there. And so outside of a physical barrier, there really isn't anything for Kitone to fall back on. And so that's where I'm trying to be more pragmatic based on how I've gotten burned in the past when I think of this unit, but we'll see.
And she doesn't have like the double absorb like Howlet does. Like he's got the buff, and then his abilities also absorb. So
Right.
even though he comes in with, I don't think he has any healing power, but because he has the double absorption, his heals can really pop off when he hits you. Kitone doesn't have that same thing going on. She just has the buff that lasts for 3 turns. She doesn't have the healing power unless you put that buff online.
That's still for 3 turns.
So right.
Same argument. Yep.
At that point, if somebody comes in and knocks you down for 70 healing power, that absorb is not doing anything for you at that point.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's like going to be one of her main weaknesses. People who can debuff healing power, and there's quite a lot of them. So yeah.
Yeah. I will say the one last honorable mention, because we do have a lot to go through here. I don't want to sleep on is the minus hate of 5. I think I'm slightly underrating this, where we've seen how impactful this can be as the select 2 and 3 has kind of faded a little bit, where I've seen a lot of characters really benefit from the last order of prioritization, that if you have like a select 2, they're not one of the ones typically getting selected, or in terms of enemy pathing, they'll let this unit kind of be off on the side because they're not generating any kind of aggro. So I don't want to underrate that, because this is coming back, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's on there at all times too is certainly nice. It's not like it procs off like Elias does at the, when she hits 1 HP or whatever. So
Right.
yeah, I definitely like that. So it's a really good passive that includes her courage as well. In terms of like a second passive, like you can, I mean, she's got some options here. I do like the additional movement where that gives you the CT down nullification,
Right.
where she can't be debuffed and or broken in her CT value. That's pretty good in times of kind of fitting in with her motif. I think I would use that one a lot, but it does have like that double-edged sword we were talking about before in terms of, is it going to put her too far ahead? Um, but she does have the area resistance there you could fill in, or the accuracy. So
Absolutely.
pretty
Absolutely.
nice options.
Yeah, but either way, good character, and we do have another character also coming out. It's Veritas of the Water, and they are a free unit. They're going to be built up via the arena medals. They're introducing a brand new currency in order to do that. I think the estimate that you've pegged it at in terms of completion is anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending upon your level of arena activity. We'll talk about the unit in just a couple minutes, but this is brand new to the game in terms of acquisition. They were trying to think outside the box. Veritas of the Heavens came out as part of the reliquaries that, it's a 100 cost unit that's virtually for free. Obviously, not truly for free. You're going to have to use some resources over time to accumulate. So, but let's talk about the method. What do you think about the method?
In my view, I mean, this might be like a controversial point, but I feel like us just getting, Veritas of the Heavens with, for veterans really not having to do anything, like all of the missions were automatically completed. We just got him, and you just had to complete a couple things in the reliquaries, and that was it. Like the first day, like within an hour or two, like I had this guy maxed out, and that's where he sat, for the last, 6 or 4 or 5 weeks or however long it's been. And I think that because of that, I don't feel like it was intended for him to be just like an automatic done day one type of project. I think they're implementing these units kind of like they want this to be content that we work towards over time, and that's why they're sort of time gating this a bit. I don't mind having something to work towards. I think that's healthy. I think that's gives us something additional to do in the game. And this is through Arena, which most active players are already doing. So it's not like we're having to go out of our way to accumulate this. Um, I know that has been one complaint where her kit is very good, like you want it right now in the game because so like anti-black mage,
Yes.
and people are kind of questioning, is it still going to be good 3 or 4 months or 5 months or whenever you eventually are able to finish her? I think it's still going to be good, to be honest with you. Is
You
it
took
going to be as good as it would be today? Maybe not, but there's a lot of good things that she carries, and the devout group I think is very strong. Good cards in there. There's some good units in there. So I don't know. I think we'll obviously have to revisit her when we have full access to the character, but I don't mind having to work towards it at all.
No, me neither. It's one character. It's not going to kill us if we have to slow build one character through arena. It's not like this is the new status quo. So I don't think this should be disrupting anyone's like pull plans or what they had in the roadmap for their account. This is literally just like a cool value add mini game that, for those that participate in arena, this is an added source of compensation, a little extra, sweetener to those that really like to sweat it out. You'll probably see more activity around there. It's still going to be tough, I think, for the casual player to compete in that because to really grind and win in arena, you do require at least a handful of the more recent releases for the bonus stuff. They've been pretty good though about re-releasing older things as like the lower modifier bonuses. So for the very casual arena player, this probably will take you quite some time to fully max her out. But it's not an unsurmountable task. I think it's fun. Whatever. It's a one-time thing. So for now, let's do it.
And I mean, you can, if you want to, you can put her in the barracks as well and get, another 50, 60 shards a month with Shardless. So, that can kind of help along the process as well. And I mean, the unit may be usable at 120 even, and maybe you can use some rainbow mind spheres to finish it off. So there's ways to sort of like kind of quicken it up a little bit if you really were fiending to get the unit online right away.
Right, right. She doesn't even have a 140 yet in JP.
No.
So even that argument's not on the table yet to consider from a cost perspective. But yeah, we'll actually dive into her kit and again, no 140 yet. So overall, she's a mace, or I'm sorry, staff devout unit. She wields staffs. I'm sorry, staff unit, staff devout. 100 cost unit. I looked through the kit earlier. I did the stat analysis. There's a lot to like here. To your point, very topical for the current meta that we're in. I'm just kicking things off. Number one, 15 AoE res. Certainly like to see that. The nullification of poison, sleep, and stun. Boy, is that like the holy the holy trinity of all the most popular status effects at the moment. That obviously pops off. You have some other good passives here. I think notably the next one here is the Spirit Pen and Agility, but the cast time one is crucially important. This will get all of her spells down to 2 ticks with a Trust Stone passive. So some debate which of these 2 out of 3 end up putting on, but she does have a lot of cool aspects to her in terms of a counter ability that's got a little bit of an imperil with a self heal. She's got a really great teammate like support function, and that's really where her primary role seems to be. I don't know enough about the AI, but recapping quickly, just 2 of the teammate buffs. It's kind of Sadali like in terms of how you pick your teammate next to you, and it's a 50% magic damage reduction. That's not a barrier, just magic damage is cut in half. That's exceptional. And then to herself and teammate, she'll give you and your teammate 20% all element res, 30 defense and spirit. Those 2 in conjunction with that magic, it's like great for her survivability. But then she also has a, like Sadali, re-raise function that she can give herself and the teammate and reduces her rate. So that right off the bat, very cool. I'll pause there in case there's any other attributes. We can keep going through the offensive abilities here too. But yeah, what are you thinking?
I mean, just for that buff that you were just talking about, I had already started kind of thinking about the synergies with it, and was really thinking about Glaciella, for example, and also in the water element, Summer Glaciella.
Yep.
Of course, she has all of that elemental resistance she likes to build up with her sword and things like that. So that really synergizes well. Of course, there's other characters like Lucio and Sephiroth too. That would be pretty interesting as well. But yeah, very very supportive character. It's kind of our first water unit that has really had an on-demand water imperil there in the big diamond on her job 25. It's only 25%, but still that's pretty solid. Does have some status effects on there that she throws as well with the poison and paralyze.
And this is a CT up to teammate. I was looking at this. This automatically casts another skill. This is
Mhm.
150 CT to nearby allies. So talk about valuing that component. That's definitely there.
Interesting on her sub job too. She's got that really long range ailment dispel. That's really cool. I don't exactly know. I mean, obviously over in JP, nobody has this character fully online yet either, so I haven't really seen anybody using her yet. So I don't know exactly how her AI operates, if she's got a really supportive AI or not. But that seems like it's a pretty interesting, at least for manual play. That's kind of cool, like a cleanse type ability. But yeah, she's got like some CT stuff going on here. I noticed in one of her earlier abilities, she has it says 200% chance CT up for 3 turns as well. I'm assuming that is a mistranslation though. I think that's actually going
Oh,
to be I think that's going to be like a debuff on the enemy that they are not able to increase their CT.
I would agree with that. I thought this is very interesting. This the way this is worded, correct me if I'm wrong, I need to brush up on this, means that this applies whether they hit or not, correct? If it's pre-damage.
Yep.
Because I was thinking about this. Her accuracy is garbo. It's abysmally bad. And there's no like accuracy passives or anything in here, which does kind of support the support build where they're typically inaccurate and that forces kind of the support capabilities. So I was really kind of like theory crafting around that, like how good is this to decrease the evasion rate of 40, which to be fair actually is good for teammates at the very least, even if she can't hit. 40% decrease of evasion, certainly nice to see. Obviously, you don't get to do the rest of these things if you don't hit, but still.
Yeah, so I mean, she's got kind of some use against, the black mages. She can kind of help you out in those evasion matches a little bit as well. And we have even seen like the light element really likes to go evasive, and they're very magic heavy too. So seems like a kind of a good character. Like I said, right for our meta right now. We don't know exactly where Gumi is going to take us, by the time this unit is finished in a couple of months, but magic is always going to be somewhere in the meta. It's good that it's very cyclical. The whether they go physical or magical. So I think that there's going to be uses for this character down the road, and like I said, there she is in a very strong weapon group with Devouts, with Saul and Amnelis, and some other nice characters in there, and I think she fits really well into what that group likes to do. And certainly, the synergy that Devout has with like Spear and Greatsword is pretty compelling as well.
Definitely. Yeah, looking forward to her for sure. But yeah, we'll keep cruising along here. We have some equipment upgrades, and not all of these are good, but worth mentioning, worth highlighting. The first one, and these are not necessarily all upgrades, but some are new, like Ketone's weapon. This one, a little confusingly, 25 elemental chain res, decrease AP consumption 25. It's a 15% physical damage reduction when the HP is above the 70%. That's the same as the courage threshold. Certainly nice to see that, consistency there. 20 strike res pen. A couple interesting abilities. That's a noteworthy amount of accuracy on here. The elemental chain res popped off, and I know you're probably a little intrigued too. I don't really get that.
I don't know if that's some calculation that they've done that, that is helping in some way, but I know that I did some testing with like with Shadow Lynx's. I think hers is like 30 or 35%, the debuff that she just came in with. And I was like, okay, let me see what kind of damage Young Eld does on his 2-hit before and after the debuff. And it was a difference of like 50 damage.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I mean, that's very much whatever. I think that like the chain resistance is niche on a tank, and otherwise I think it's very much not anything to worry about.
I've always had the argument for the tank, at least because they tend to run slower. There's more opportunities for them to get lapped and have chains accumulate. So you don't want a tank just getting chained down because they're slow. That sucks. But she's like gonna be darting around, changing her turn all the time. The rate of chain acclimate or accumulation on her is going to be low to none. So yeah, I'm gonna theory craft the shit out of this because I have no idea why they decided to include this.
I think like the only kind of maybe wrinkle there is that we have been seeing some LBs in play lately that do extend the elemental chain, where those chain stacks can build up on you over, a couple of rounds while that debuff is applied to you. And maybe if those continue to be kind of peppered in the meta, maybe it's more interesting. I don't know. We'll have to kind of see. But right now, it's just Glaciella and Raph that have it. So
It's the best argument I've heard so far. I like that. But yeah, keep going on here. We have the sharpshooter monocle. This was a raid accessory, yeah, item. Very minimal. It's getting 5 extra crit damage so far as I can tell. It's going from 15 to 20. A decent enough buff on the crit rate going from 18 to 25. This is not an accessory we use a lot though, and 5 crit damage certainly is not moving the needle for me personally.
no, I mean you use it for the AP kind of angle. If you're trying to deprive AP from the enemy, and that's about it. So
Yeah.
this one hasn't really even been out that long. I feel like we just got this like maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised to see it getting the +6 already, but I think we actually got this one late, so maybe that's why.
I think so. I think this is part of Melnia. It was like tied to her release. So, yeah, whatever. The Yoichi bow, which is one of the reliquary weapons, is getting a, in my opinion, substantial buff here. The decreased chance of being targeted is going from -8 to -10. That's big. That's a whole nother hit your teammate will take before you take damage. And it's adding the 8 AoE res, which is certainly very nice. That for free on a bow unit. This is, I think, best in slot for most bow units at the moment. Really, the platinum bow, I think, is the only other genuine contender. The rune bow's got a lot of accuracy, but I think this is like the best, and this just got better.
One thing that I really have appreciated more recently about the decreased hate mechanic is that you can use that to enable like tankless comps where you have a support running with like double bruiser, and the support, and maybe you can even find a way to get decreased hate on the second unit, and you put your bulkiest unit, and that becomes a pseudo tank at that point because they're gonna be higher in the hate chain than the other two. So I really do like that, especially because the bow class is the range class that does have some supportive units, like the Nivlus of the world, like Rosa, if you want to play around and use her, Fina as well. And I'm assuming that we'll probably kind of see that trend continue going into the future. I do really like that area resistance on here as well, because until we got that pod, there was no way for these cloth units to get area resist in their equipment. So
Yep. Yeah, excellent upgrade. The other one here, and we'll have a Q&A on this later, is the Ninja Blade. I'll be honest, I forgot this was in the game. I have it maxed, but it's used so infrequently. And the upgrade here, you're getting an extra 5 evade upon critical hit. And they're adding an ability that you're getting 5 AP upon critical hit. I think this is stellar. I mean, it doesn't have the mods and the penetrations that most of the other Ninja Blades do, but you can trust no pass of those. But I actually genuinely, for the characters that are Ninja Blade units, love this for them.
and getting the increased reaction block of 40% as opposed to like 20% on a trust stone is really nice too.
Yep.
I agree. I didn't really like this in its initial version, but with this upgrade, I think it's definitely much more of a consideration. I think, and that crit evasion buff does stack with if they have just their innate subterfuge or whatever they're using for an evade buff. So
Yep.
it's a good way to kind of get just a little bit more dodgy to get the AP sustain. Very nice piece all around, I'd say.
Absolutely. For the units that can equip it, this is right down the middle. Great attack upgrade too. 242 is in line. Most Ninja Blades skew high on attack stats, so this gets this back in line with them. So very nice.
Definitely.
Next one here is the Tide Ring. We're getting the tower released, which at this point is kind of like the monotony grind. People just auto through it, collect the ring, and sign off. This one's getting the pretty standard upgrade that most of the others have gotten in terms of adding 5% to both of the elements. Not much to talk about other than 2 thumbs up. Everyone do this. This is still a vital piece of equipment for many matchups, like the upgrade.
Thankfully, like for veterans who've already done the 100 floors, we don't have to do that again unless you're just trying to get currency or whatever. But we just have the Spire of Water, and I think those are just the 10 floors. I've found those a little bit more enjoyable than going through the that whole climb of the tower was absolutely awful. So it's still not great, but I think it's better than it was, at least for if you have completed the original version.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. We'll segue now though to looking at the new vision card that's coming out. It's Kitone's vision card. We'll call it that. It's for bows, daggers, fists, and gun. Obviously, I immediately like this because of the fact that bow is on it. We've been desperately clamoring, not only for a bow card, but to overlap bow and gun in terms of combining those. So this obviously is for a strike-oriented team at first glance because it's her card, but this obviously applies to them as well. You can see the attributes here, 30 human killer on physical attack, 20 accuracy, 40 reaction block. I think one of my low-key favorites, though, is 15 crit damage for Guild War. I'm going to circle back on that later, but I know you prepared this recently. What are you thinking about the vision card?
Honestly, I forgot that this was free over in JP,
It's
and
free.
I was surprised at the news when it came out this morning. I do remember seeing that in JP, but I honestly I completely forgot about it. So that is really cool. That makes 2 like pretty solid vision cards that we've gotten completely free, 2 hollow cards in the last few weeks with the near card and now this. So that's really nice to see. I do hope that they continue with that and that we do continue to get these periodically. That said, I think it's a really nice card, especially as we think about going into potentially needing more cards for Guild War with the 10 card change that JP is testing at the moment. And yeah, bow, like you said, another fist card, and I do like that. Again, gun and bow are combined on this one. That's just 2 cards I think so far, but both have been pretty nice offensive cards with Irvine's card and now this one.
Yeah, the I always think about Fist in a different category with these because Fist has the luxury of having a 2-in-1 vision card with the FMA Brotherhood that it's got unit res and agility on it, which means you can always free up any third vision card you want in the party. So to me, if I see a Fist job-based vision card, it's unique because it's a main slot candidate, regardless of the 10 vision card consideration for future Guild Wars. Because again, you still have Arena and Quick Pick and all these 3-member fights still. That accuracy, 20 accuracy is a nice one to throw into that for that Fist team. Not all those Fist units are hyper accurate. We know a couple of them have struggled in getting that. Reaction block is slightly redundant, but the human killer is another really good one here. They do have one on the Urel vision card already, But again, you talk about potential main slot. This one, it's just a different set of attributes. I like that. The 15 crit damage for Guild War, though. Anytime I see Guild War as the hollow bonus, eyes obviously perk up a little bit. Like, is this a good one or not? I actually really do like this. You know why? Because bow and gun are historically high crit rate units. We've both, talked about frustrations with the crit mechanic and that the damage upside isn't as good as it used to be. But this will be like a permanent 15 extra leg up or less if it's a submission card. But it's a little bit of a modifier advantage for those units that I think is like one building block, maybe of many, to kind of having them get their damage back in a sense.
I would throw Dagger into that category as well. They've often been higher on the crits, leaderboards as well. Think about Zidane and even units like Rafal and some others, usually pretty high on the crit index. So yeah, I think it synergizes well with the units who can use it. I like it quite a bit. I think I'm gonna be using this one quite often. The one thing that I'm not positive is whether the shards are free. I'm thinking that they're probably not. I think that we just get the initial get and then, we can finish out the card probably with hard quests and, buying shards. Being a hollow, we're not going to be able to use vision stars to complete it. So, if you want to finish this one quickly, you will need to put a little bit of Izior into it. But, at the end of the day, it's this is a card that we'd normally be paying, anywhere from 10 to 20K just to get the card. So
Yep.
not a bad get at the end of the day.
No, particularly because it's a good vision card. It's worth
Yeah.
worth the investment for many. But we'll keep going along here. We have 3 limit burst upgrades for some older units, and one of them has made some very interesting JP wrinkles or JP ramifications. The first one we'll kick off, though, not that unit, is Raldor. His limit break upgrade is getting 40 defense pen for 3 turns. It's a 20% physical. I'm sorry, 20%. I'm laughing, but 20% physical barrier for 3 turns, and it's a 10% regen for 3 turns. It's slightly extending the range from the 3 squares to the 4. A pretty drastic AP reduction from 43 to 28. This means nothing to me. It solves a little bit of his damage problem with the 40 extra defense pen. 20 physical damage shield is nothing. 10% regen is also not all that great because he still gets killed by everything under the sun pretty quickly. And he still has the most crucial critical problem of the fact that literally every single ability in his entire kit, other than Taunting Blade, is a single target. That's a massive deficiency. This does nothing to help solve that. That's it.
Yeah, this is a big swing and a miss. I think why a 20% physical reduction? And I mean, at least the way that it's written here, it does look like it's a barrier. It doesn't look like it's the new like flat 20% physical reduction.
Right.
But I mean, even if it is the new sort of status, I don't think that it changes my opinion that much. I don't think it's a fine limit burst on in a vacuum, but the character, like we've talked about with Oldo and some of these other characters, just not in a good enough place that it's going to really do much of anything for them.
No, definitely. And we'll go to the next one here, who is Eliza, who has was a staple for a long time of the ice missile meta. She has obviously fallen off a bit. A being a bow unit, number one, where they haven't gotten the same kind of love. But just statistically, she doesn't hold up durability wise. She can get one shot by nearly everything in the game, and she does technically have some pretty damaging AP problems. I know one of the most popular builds to run her with is to bow tie her and to Zizabel her and to actually have her proc bells, because you'll essentially like stop her from using this teammate buff, let her use bells, or it's the teammate buff and bells. Bottom line is that I'm getting to, they're solving that in this limit break, where for 3 turns when performing a crit hit, she increases AP by 15. That is exceptional. I don't think anything else is really changing here, to my knowledge, but that alone is great.
There's a pretty big change that it took me a while
Oh,
to notice.
2 casts.
It's 2 casts now, which is very, very rare. That's been very selective. I mean, I can only think of a couple of others that they've given a second cast to. But I mean, this is her highest damaging ability, and it's her longest range ability as well. So, and it's often would one shot a lot of units that she can able to get a hold of, at least back in the day, and maybe it doesn't anymore. But Um, I don't know if she does still have that massive deficiency in terms of her survivability,
Right.
and that's tough. But if you can find the right map for her, maybe this is pretty interesting.
Can I walk back everything I just said? I actually don't think this is enough now, because if you're using this limit break twice, you're using you're using 86 AP. It would take 3 hits for you to make up for what you spend in the second cast. Uh, that actually might change my opinion ever so slightly. It's still very good, but it definitely equalizes it. So she definitely has become more of a potential glass cannon, attempting to nuke some people from long range, uh, twice instead of once.
Yeah, she's probably still a Bell's unit, like
Yeah.
if you're really wanting to use her expensive abilities.
Yep. But the last one, and this one actually made a really fun theorycraft discussion, is Nivlu getting a limit break upgrade. That I think in JP, this was also partially top 10 scheduling related at what their perceived opponents were running. It wasn't necessarily the character themselves, but really like kind of, we've seen this in global, where top end has been using Varouche in this very small niche of applicability, that I think this is kind of the same condition that you might look at Wood of Stats and be misled that this character suddenly got amazing overnight. Not necessarily the case, but the limit break, full disclosure number one, this is actually the first limit break I ever maxed in World of Vision. So I have a little bit of a soft spot for this. But it's a nice AP reduction from 58 to 49. The big thing for it is that it's reducing the elemental chain res for the targets, which is particularly important because it's a 67% chance to slow. Also gives her 20 AoE res. We'll talk about that after. But this is really the bread and butter of it, that, we talk about now in a mage meta in particular. If she can outrange them, slow them nearly immediately to start, get the decrease of elemental chain res, means they won't get their turn as often, so they're more likely to get chained, as we were just talking about, 10 minutes ago. That, you combine that with the defense break here, to start a fight in that hole, it's tough to climb out of, getting hit by this. This is a great limit break upgrade.
I mean, we've seen Summer Jaden. He has that long range slow. When, like you said, when you're getting hit with it so early as you're kind of coming in on your approach, it just completely it's so hard. I'd say it's near impossible to overcome that.
Yep.
Um, and she has very very long range. You can get her 3 range plus this got an additional range in the upgrade.
Did it? I didn't even zoom in on that.
Yeah, plus 1 range on the upgrade. So
7 squares away. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yep, 7 squares away.
So 7 squares plus the 3 that she can pick up. She does have gunner as well, so I think she has aimed fire. If I recall correct.
Yep.
She does.
Yep.
So 11 range potentially if you're using that party buff. That's insane.
Awesome.
That's going to hit you across the map, no problem.
Yep.
She does have to have the AP to use it, which I don't think she's going to have that on turn 1 unless you give her some items for some increased AP. But I think you can easily do that. You could give her spectacles or some other initial AP item and get there, for like if you really wanted to use it right away.
Yep.
So
yeah, I'm intrigued. I've not touched her in quite some time, but love the character art. Love the character. It's been long enough that I haven't used her that I'm happy to throw in the party just for the sake of shaking the game up a little bit. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
she was always one of my favorite missile units to use because she does have the haste and the quicken that give you a lot of possibilities to play with. So yeah, looking forward to doing some of that.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. And just a couple other quick things here. We do wanted to mention the raid boss revival finally coming back. There's a lot of raid boss items. I'm not exactly sure the complete lineup of what'll be available. I do think that changes every once in a while, but I know I've heard people as of late talking about missing out on certain items. I think the marshmallow was a big one for a while. Hopefully that gets rerun, where through this whole black mage meta, there's been a lot of people that are like, I don't have a marshmallow +6, so like I'm getting slept like no one's business.
Honestly, I can't blame that. A lot of that item really hasn't gotten a ton of use until now. I built them a long time ago, just being like a manual player, and status effects have always been a big problem there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel for those people that haven't had that. I do hope that it's there, and if it is, grab at least one.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So what we're going to do now is a minor, small showcase of a handful of teams against the Vivi Helena Wrath meta, which is still plaguing people. We're going to be using the Guild War map that just ended, not the limited Guild War map because the cost applications don't apply there, but the Guild War map that just ended. And we're going to be taking a handful of teams, notably a Fist team, a Spear team. So we're going to, dabble into the Rainbow to show you the capabilities, but also Greatsword team and a Monolight team. So there are mono element things you can do. We've done showcases before where we showed like mono lightning and mono wind having very competitive chances against them with some evade builds and whatnot. But there's still some struggle going on in a handful of the ranks that this is just like for theory crafting and obviously some entertainment and just seeing the potential. I think we're in the territory now where Helena Vivi does not have the secrets that it once did. It's very solvable. The game balance has changed pretty substantially. That I think it's about time for the rest of the Guild War rankings to kind of catch up to that. It's not this unsolvable burden, and so hopefully this can open or shed some light on that.
And I think some of these teams, I mean, I think if you're playing amongst the top end of the game, they're not going to be unfamiliar, but maybe for some folks out there, it's not teams that you see every day. More like the job, the job synergy team. So I think that'll be an interesting angle to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the team that I'm going to be using this round is going to be a Greatsword team, and it's going to be with A2 and Astrius, and then we're going to be using some synergy they have with the Devout class and bringing in Shawls for support. You can really build a similar team around Shawls with a lot of different groups.
And we're starting real quick. I'm sorry. You can keep talking, but we're starting right now.
But yeah, she brings like such good buffs against this Black Mage team with like the dark res and light res and kind of the passive healing with the regen and everything. So it ends up working really nicely.
I love it. Yeah, she's continued to be an underratedly good support. I didn't think she's going to be this good. She's faded a little bit, but it's still standing the test of time comparatively to all other supports. Obviously, we get the courage off here on A2 now, who should both have the uptime of courage and re-raise. That kind of gives her that extra survivability that should they remove one, she has the other. Certainly nice to have both options at your disposal. You'll notice this Wrath AI is slightly different. I have the Valentine Eldyra TMR on for the second turn. This is actually Final Boss's creation, the #1 guild, where they did this to give her the unit res and the extra move here. So I think it's a fun wrinkle to put into it. But this fight's starting off great for you. You got regen online for both. Astrius now has courage too. Obviously can be removed from Helena. That's part of her buff, so that's certainly at risk, but still. And you see there's the Eldyra TMR coming online.
Yeah, I am missing the elemental resist buff, but I should get that here. Yep.
And there it is.
It's good to pick up that as the last buff too, because you want that lasting as far into the fight as you can.
Definitely.
So we get the haste removed there on Raf. Barrier break.
Certainly nice. There goes the barrier. Some AP back.
Yeah, that buff is really helpful for the AP sustain if you can get the crits off. Pretty sure it's crit based.
Yep. Oh, barely even touched them both. Double destruction. There we go. Vivi should hopefully come in now. After. That's odd.
You can see the regen there just completely wipes away the damage. And we get the repair as well. So
fantastic.
Lots of passive healing on this team. Shells doesn't have anything to do.
Not the worst problem in the world. All right, so
we're going to start getting debuffed here, though, so the damage is going to start ramping up.
Yep, most definitely. And very clutch heal. I think this will touch Raph. No, it didn't. I'm surprised.
I think this map is very much favored for Helena in this team.
I would agree with that.
That damage is so strong.
Well, so it's typeless. That's the big thing. All that dark res and element res means nothing. That's a typeless attack from Vivi. We're probably getting Doomsday here now too. This is his limit breaks. This is where people start to. This is like that turning point in the team fight where everything looks great. Oh no, he didn't. He's going for flare again. So their AOE res must be high enough that does more damage. But Shals does have a full life capability here. Looks like it's maybe going to go off. She at least has courage, and I think Helena has spent her. Or she won't even hit her.
See Astrius.
Oh, it failed. Oh no.
Tanking like a boss.
But yeah.
Hopefully he's got enough here that he can still take this one back.
But for those of you watching, just imagine that A2 got rezzed. You can see how quickly that would still help your fight overall. Even if this goes south, you can see that that res would have won it. Flare still doesn't do the worst damage. We're going to get healed up here, I think. Oh, maybe not in time.
Ooh, this is tough.
Oh, clutch.
Can she get the heal off before Vivi comes in? Good. That removes the debuffs, which is pretty helpful.
That might, right, he might have still had the magic imperil applied to him. Oh, you have the vision card turned on.
Or you have the vision card turned on.
I do. That should not be turned on. That should be turned off. Thank you. But regardless, pretty clean fight, all things considered. That you failed the A2 res. Certainly like to see how competitive that was. I'm pretty impressed with that team.
So I mean, usually this team will win with 3 standing. I got a little bit unlucky with the turn order and how things played out there, where Vivi was able to keep his haste and get a double or a quick double turn there. So that ended up wiping out A2, but a little bit unlucky with not getting the raise as well. But still, you can see how strong Astrius is in this build with his magic resistance and being able to tank that up like a champ.
Definitely. So the second map we're going to go into here, or the second team we're going to go into, a spear team, which we have theory crafted the heck out of. There's obviously a ton of really good spear units in the game. You really don't see this team making a lot of waves, but that doesn't mean it's not good. I'm certainly excited to see it kind of put on display here. But just for context, who's watching, my Wrath max reincarnated, my Helena is at 70 for reincarnations. I think the Vivi might be at 10 just for some minor stats. But the point is, that team that JB just brought is, and I think you have reincarnations on A2, so I think it's
on A2.
On A2. But regardless, this is like a top end Wrath and Helena that you're going against.
Yeah, so the spear team here that I'm bringing is going to be Young Eld. It's going to be Flag Glaciella. And then I'm going to bring Dialdo as a tank. You can actually do this same thing with Shawls in there. She works very well with Spear. The Devout class works very well there too. So you could play the same way where you're running the 2 Bruiser Spear units with Shawls. I'm deciding just for a little bit different look here with Dialdo. I think that the Shawls team has a better chance of a 6-star day where you have kind of the sustain there. It's a little bit harder with Dialdo where, he doesn't have as much active healing going on, but I think you can definitely get 3 with this team. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still think Dialdo works. I think Dialdo needs to be revamped a little in how you build him for this matchup. I personally dropped the faith down from 97 down to at least 50, where, that nerfs his damage output. Oh, I gotta record. We're starting right now. Cool, got it. But the ability to dictate enemy movement is still a major intangible.
That's a great point in terms of his faith. I have not done that to my Dialdo yet. So this is a 97 faith Dialdo. So he, certainly would take a lot less damage if I'd even drop that down to like 50 or even 70, to be honest.
Right. It's technically 50% less damage if you go from 97 faith to 50 faith.
Yep. He still tanks pretty well, even at 97, though.
Interesting. My movement's a little bit different here with Dialdo and that slot 1 at the bottom. I think Vivi might be hasting either himself or Helena here.
Yeah, so with the hate at the bottom of the map, the team will definitely move a little different here.
Yeah. So it looks like Raph does not get that. Yeah, he's going to haste himself. Okay, we'll see. We'll see how this works out.
Oh, she tried to cast a Doom there.
Interesting. A lot of damage there for Barrier Break Lance. That's nice.
So Eld should be able to come in here from the side a little bit.
Not bad.
We're lined up for an AoE though. Don't like to see that.
No. But this team has a ton of AoE res. Oh god. Oh, all right, fast cast. Okay, not the worst. I mean, still, I'm always impressed to see how much damage they don't take on an ability like that from Helena. Like, there was a time where you got nuked on that first ability, and that is not the case anymore. This obviously great buff is going to kill. A great attack is going to kill Raph, he's going to get his regen online and the unit res. Great time for Glassfella to come here and finish things off. She's going to also gain courage off of this, which if she kills Helena, won't have that removed. I don't think Vivi will have the capability to do anything with that, but we'll see if this is a doomsday limit break here. It is. Well, this is
So
this is
crazy.
this is the moment everyone sits on the edge of their seat. They're like, I don't know what's gonna happen now. Like this fight was going well, and like who knows what's gonna happen now. And
So the nice thing about the Spear team is they do have the passive that allows them to block the stun. Glacial actually has native stun resistance, so you can just use a trust stone on her. But
this is nice to see.
This is good placement for me for L. It's kind of off to the side here.
It is. Right. I think at this point, I don't think you're losing based off his positioning alone. That even should they kill the other two, which she might, this limit break might do it. This imperil.
I think Glacial is still in good shape here.
The courage move though. Oh no, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm wrong. Oh, okay. Clutch heal off.
Still got the stun on Dialdo, but we should be able to finish it off.
Oh, here. Beautiful. Oh my god, what are they? 1 HP? By the skin of their teeth, they're alive right now. Elda's just gonna finish us off with a quick basic attack. Go through both of them. You don't see that basic attack through two very often. That was wonderful to watch. That was great.
Won it pretty handily there. I mean, took some damage. Like I said, it's a 3-star team, but it wasn't really in much danger there. So I think pretty reliable. Team is very, very accurate as well, so it is able to flex against other teams besides this Black Mage team, which is pretty nice. Same thing can be said about A2 as well. That's why I do like both of these team iterations. Not only can you beat that Black Mage team, they do have the flexibility to go against other teams as well.
I like it. That makes sense. And so, yeah, we're going to switch things up now. I'm going to be bringing the attack team to JB. I'm going to be doing a strike team and then a Monolight team. And the light team will be interesting because I actually don't know if it can beat this, but we'll watch. But this strike team is Alaya, 2P, and Perrine. This is a team that's meant to just kind of like get up in their face quickly and disrupt any kind of buff online time that they have. There's a lot of damage, a lot of follow-up damage, some evasion, which they do struggle with occasionally. A little bit in the way of Alaya and imperiling certain aspects while Perrine does the unit res down. So they kind of hit you a bunch of different ways. This strike team has done very well at the top end. So the one thing about the strike team I will say, I have them both converging in the middle on Perrine, but I found that sometimes it's better to even let the strike units spread out as opposed to congregate together. Obviously against this kind of team, AoE can be risky, but some weird stuff happens with the evasion, the hate down, and the percent of the topography. So we're already starting off at a bad note where that wasn't supposed to happen. Elias is supposed to go first, but I'm not going to lie, let it ride. I think this team still wins. So Alaya will get her main buff off here. She'll start moving diagonally, backward down.
Yeah, we'll have to see like how they're going to be pretty far away, kind of up on that side of the map. Gonna have a few buffing turns here.
Definitely.
Hopefully 2P doesn't get too far ahead of everyone.
So I have the Winter Raft TMR on here for Perrine. That unit res, I think, is actually a big deal for Perrine. I've noticed her dying to some stuff that I wouldn't expect. This is the Bradley TMR from Alaya.
So we do have time here. My Helena is able to get off her third buff there and get the barrier online, which a lot of people, at least in the top end of the game, have been shifting to this barrier build.
That barrier did a great job stopping most of that damage, but at least TP broke that barrier. I mean, I think that was the reason for the AI prioritizing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm overall okay with this positioning so far, though. This is basically how my team would have ended up no matter what.
This is actually, if your Elias still has her re-raise removal buff, it's going to be very good for you here.
So there's a lot of guaranteed hit coming out on TP, but still taking it like a champ. That's a re-raise move on all three of them.
Yeah, triple right. Re-raise. That was like the last turn of that buff, I think.
Yep. Oh, interesting. Okay, we get the reapplication there. I'm okay with that. I think I have some other buffs turned off on Perrine. I think that's what ended up happening. But um, gets that AoE crush. There's the Trace Plus. This should proc Vivi to all so close. I was hoping to proc him to Courage. I mean, re-raise. I think he's going to get canceled here.
Oh, this is huge. Get this
Huge.
stag impact again.
Yep. Cancel the Vivi cast.
That's massive. Probably going to get an LB. Oh, no LB. Going for the kill shot. Okay.
Okay. So not a clean 3. I will admit though again.
Oh, the counter.
The counter ability, clutch.
Yeah, so you're gonna win this easily.
I don't know. Vivi's gonna. Oh no, he's down. There's no re-raise. That's right.
And this is a different team when you can line up the re-raise remove. Like this team is not scary at all. That's
You're right.
Like you getting the triple re-raise remove is massive.
So close to finishing her off there. 90 HP. There's the limit break. She's gonna regen some health.
Perrine should be able to finish it off though. So the cool thing about Perrine with her weapon is she doesn't take the imperil there. She doesn't get any debuffs.
You're correct. And finishing off. So not as clean as I would have liked. And again, even my opening rotation did not work as I expected it to. That being said, it still won. The point is you can see how very competitive it is, even with 2B taking some 2P taking some hits there from Vivi and Raph that were the guaranteed hits. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the secret to one of the secrets to beating that team, especially with Elia when you're trying to if you can get her in a position to at a minimum get 1 to 2 re-raise strips off of those 3 units. It's tricky to do, but it worked out really well there.
Yeah, definitely. And the last team I have here, I'm just switching
this team I'm not as sure about.
Yeah, so this team we're rolling the dice on. We say this team can beat. We've seen this team beat it. I don't know if this exactly will beat it. We'll see how close it is. This is Helena, Bartz, and Lucio. And so, I have this team built for Bartz to capitalize on the follow-up attacks. He's got Bowtie on, and he's the slowest of them. The intention with that is to let him lag behind and proc as many of those follow-ups as possible so that he doesn't, run out of that buff soon or frontline and end up dying. I really want him to hang back. And we'll see if they can stand up. Again, this is completely by the seat of our pants. We don't know if this will actually work, but it'll be fun to watch regardless.
I've done a little bit of tinkering with this team also, and I think there's a lot of potential for it. I'm sure that I know there's a lot of light players in global, and I know that quite a few of them probably pulled for this new Lucio unit. I think that the buffing is certainly there for this trio of units. You can get some really strong buffs online.
I know the big conundrum with this team is the Helena with the follow-up from Bartz that her sleep, when she lands it, it'll immediately get woken up. It's not the best synergy, and she's got a lot of like AoE crush, and Lucio doesn't really have a lot of AoE ability, so there's some incongruity here with how the team overall works. I don't think it's the best light team you could possibly have. There we go. Okay, so the haste enables this. I'm actually very happy with this. I think there's probably better opportunities for light in the future than this team, but I think at present moment, this is likely one of the better ones. Okay.
So definitely a buff fest going on.
you even got a TMR going off here on Raph. Yeah, she had to walk a long way. Rebellious Spirit. I actually don't mind this. The extra defense pen gets him at least to the 100. The attack.
So Lucio stayed in range there for the follow-up. It's the protect removal.
Helena might. This might be just on the edge of that.
So the barrier coming in big there for
5K to Raph. Love to see it.
That's crazy. That's the thing with this team. Like if you can line up and get the good follow-ups going in a chain, like it can wipe the floor with a lot of teams for sure. Lucio gets his heal.
He's going to do a select 2 ability, I'd imagine, here now. Yeah. Okay, so at least Raph is dead. I'll take that. Vivi might have been casting for Raph here, so that, if he was, yeah, didn't get it in time. Bartz is probably going for the nothing. Ooh. But maybe
Bowtie hurt him a little bit there. He couldn't get in range.
But he still should have the follow-up here, I think. No? Maybe? That's one?
Yep.
Oh, almost.
So close.
So close.
Does proc the re-raise though on Vivi. That's helpful.
and she
The
heals
full
herself to
heal.
full. Oh my god. I don't see that very
Right.
often.
Limit burst here, maybe. Yep. So it's all up to what Vivi can do here on this turn.
I'm thinking limit break. I think he just nukes him, and I don't know if Lucille lives through it. Oh, Shadow Flare. You have it on too? Oh no, that's the AoE. Oh no, that was his actual Shadow Flare. That was not the Vision card ability. Okay. So that didn't work as expected. Still some tuning to go, but hopefully you can see some takeaways there of things that ended up working. Probably has something to do with some spacing. The bow tie probably hurt Bart's there, where he might have killed someone a little bit faster. Regardless,
that team can do it though. Like I think there's tweaking you can do there to make it work. It was very close.
Yeah.
Came down to that last turn sequence.
Yep.
If Bart's had been able to get into a position to get a hit off there instead of, I think that would have changed things.
Totally agreed. And there's other iterations too. I had Bart's in the middle using his AoE buff. You've talked about it. You make Helena the slowest and allow her to be the one that gets the damage reduction on her team. So there's iterations of that buff sequence you can play with. That's why we save that one for last, because it's not as much of a guarantee slam dunk as some of the others. But that team is right on the edge of the capability of doing so. And to be honest, if you were fighting Helena Vivi, I could meta tune that team a lot harder for the light and dark res than what I did. I didn't there because you don't want to overcompensate your teams. You don't want to make them that unbalanced. But if you're having a problem with Helena Vivi, there's nothing wrong with meta tuning for it if that's predominantly what you're seeing.
The other thing to mention there too is that your Lucio and Bart's are not scrolled out. No. My Vivi is not either, but my Helena and Raph are similar to yours. So that's a if when you're talking about units that haven't been invested in, that's if they are able to swing the tides there, that's saying a lot. And
actually,
I think it was pretty close there.
Go with me here. If your Helena's not reincarnated, where my Bart slightly is, that follow-up attack kills her, and she doesn't limit break after that. The limit break doesn't give the magic imperil, and Vivi probably doesn't nuke all three of them. So that little bit of the reincarnation conversation likely just had an effect right there on winning and losing.
Yeah. And likewise, if your Bart's was maxed out, he would have had the power to finish her off there as well.
Yep.
So
absolutely. So good. Well, we'll keep moving on here. I know we're getting a little bit long, but a couple fun things to talk about. Mainly the 13 collab returning with Fang, and just some of the first impressions for her as a unit. She's a lightning spear oriented unit, 90 cost, so not gangbusters per se in terms of the expectations, if you will. There's a lot to like initially about her bringing a barrier seal. She has her own version of barrier break. I actually really like the defense crush that she has of 80% defense crush. There's actually something really nice about that defense levels get high enough right now that this is a new kind of tank bust in 2024 with the amount of units that are getting like reductions to defense pen on enemies. We're seeing defense pen kind of creep back down lower, particularly for this magic meta where you maybe aren't using all the defense pen passives that you used to because it's not as bulky for defense. This one, I think people might underrate how strong it comes out. But 25% pierce and peril. This though we've seen isn't all that terribly impactful from a damage perspective. She does at least have the sub drop that Gernsback has that gives her the teammate buff of the additional 15 pierce and peril. I have some better hopes for her than for Gernsback, where she seems to be a little bulkier ever so slightly than he does. I love this unit because it's a lightning pierce unit, which that element desperately needs. It's only 9S at the moment. I'm not going to give Alim the love she deserves, and I just like her addition into it. I know it's not a lightning unit, but I think it's a good add. But that's my thoughts.
There is a sequential effect on her limit burst that's not translated on Votive Calc. I don't recall exactly what the effect does off the top of my head, but I do know that there is a missing piece that we're not seeing here. In terms of like going back to that defense crush, interesting that hers is in 80%, which is all the crushes we've seen so far have topped out at 60%. That goes to 80%, which is really interesting, I thought.
Yep.
Really, really amazing party buff there with not only is she getting that huge barrier, but attack, agility to the allies, unit resistance to the allies, and then she gets a huge reaction block, all for 4 turns.
Thank you.
That's pretty crazy.
That was the thing I was saying. Yeah, right. This has been a little subtle form of power creep, is the extra turn of a lot of these buffs. Very underrated.
Yeah, she does have courage in there. I like the select 2 in peril on a range 4. Yeah, I think there's some. I don't think that she is standing up to like Flag C or Elds, but it's a 90 cost unit. She really shouldn't. So like if you don't have Elds and you're like a big player, you're a big Fang fan. I think she's like a competitive Pierce unit. She's pretty strong. Um, yeah, I think that's good, pretty solid unit.
Yeah, I mean, to me, she's different to them too. That she's not the same kind of brawler bruiser unit. She's different. She's more dragoon esque. Even that jump stands out to me. Eldon Glassy are not that kind of spear unit, where she's more of the like map topography angle. That I think she just again checks a box that doesn't currently exist in the spear group. So for that alone, I like it. The numbers are going to be fine. The skills obviously are modern enough that I think they're fine. I think it's a really well crafted unit. I haven't seen a ton of deficiencies that popped out to me yet. They give her some free accuracy. Maybe accuracy is the one thing that maybe could be lacking, but she still has a 30% hit chance on that ability. So even from that angle, I still like up and down what she has to offer. There is technically an absorb HP here, but this ability isn't your bread and butter. Yeah.
One thing about this unit with that barrier seal that's on the cross AoE there, it's super long
So
range.
long
Can
range.
like range 6. Like she's gonna walk 3 and then has range 6. This is also like a an arcing like javelin skill, so it can get even additional range if she's got height differential.
Which she could
So
jump four. She could.
yeah, so like she could be hitting 10 tile, including the movement. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, there are more things with the collab that we'll end up talking about, but for now we'll pass. We do have some Q
Yep.
and A we can get through. I don't think this will take a ton of time, but yeah, we'll pause here for Q and A. So the first question here is: do we think Ninja Blade weapon group will ever get any focus? And it's a good question. If we go back to the list of ninja weapon, it's pretty small. That's why we were bringing up earlier the +1 to that weapon. I kind of forgot about it because you don't often use all of these units. There's still some decent ones. Yuffie obviously pops out. I still have high hope, not hopes. I have a high opinion of Sweetheart Odira. I think she's aged relatively well. Farms is on a Kitone. Probably not. From a VC selection, there's not enough to really build them into anything. And because they're evade units, they really are very like luck and evasion heavy. So I don't see much rainbow opportunity for them. Answer the question. No, I don't think they'll ever get any focus.
I mean, I think eventually they will come around to them. It's just a matter of, I mean, we will see other like ninjas and evasive units in the game at some point. I don't think they would drop them altogether. But with the characters that we kind of know about that they're kind of working on, like from the prequel storyline and from this current Ashes of Apocalypse, even like some of the story characters like Lilith and Ramada that we kind of have and Adelard that have showed up in some of the story art. None of them are going to be in the ninja group, so it's going to be some time unless there's some surprise unit that we don't know about. Maybe it could be June. Who knows at this point? That would be kind of probably a
Kind of
bad
cool.
thing for her,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
unless she comes with like a banger vision card. But yeah, it's not going to be anytime soon, I don't think.
I think you articulated that better than me. Right. They're going to get attention sometime in the game. It obviously exists. Axe had the same question forever, and obviously Axe got some focus. But yeah, we've seen an uptick in katana cards, in sword warrior cards, in bow cards. We're not seeing that for Ninja Blade, and that's not on the horizon from what we can tell.
At least so far, like their pattern has been to kind of issue several cards in succession for these groups to kind of really fill out things that they need, in addition to like a unit or two, like over like a couple month span. Um, so yeah, that's that's what we're waiting on for them.
Yep. This is a fun theory craft question. That do you think adding the 4 VC slots, and again to recap, that comes from the JP Guild War change at the moment where they're adding in 2 subunits. They're adding in their vision cards on them, and so now Guild War will have 10 total vision cards at play. Only 3 units on the field, but the vision cards and backup will still be active. And so this question, and the next couple off of this, do we think adding 4 vision card slots could cause some playstyles to have more benefits than others? For example, it's a great example, an evade team, previously they went all into evade, left aside a lot of bulk and area res and single target res. Now they can be evasive and more survivable with the extra space. We have a question and example. This is a great example. I would agree with the unit. I think there's some teams that are going to have more benefits, but I think it's going to be offset by other things. So I don't know if you have an initial thought. I'll let you kick things off.
I can definitely see the kind of thought pattern there where yes, we have min-maxed evade based on the current parameters, and because that is their main survival angle, and almost always they're dying in 1 hit, or maybe 2 hits at the most. Is another card for single target unit or single target or area resist going to really change it that much for them? Probably not. Maybe for those units that are dying in 1 hit now, maybe they can take 2 hits instead. Maybe that's a value add. In terms of their evade potential, I think that there are some things that you can do with it in terms of like min-maxing bestows on those units and pushing other cards into those reserve slots. So I think there is some stuff to play with there, and we can eke out maybe just a little bit more evade, a little bit of agility. But I think what I'm imagining that I'm going to do is push into the damage numbers, keep my evasion at a similar rate, or try to get maybe a little bit more if I can, but really try to up my damage potential rather than bringing in any sort of defenses, because I really just want to end the fight quickly while my evade buffs are still up, while it's still very difficult for them to hit me, even if they are able to bring in like an accuracy card or or a luck card or whatever. So I just want to bring in my penetrations, want to bring in my modifiers and my attack, and then just try to push out as much damage as I can.
I actually like your angle on that because I think that's probably the most successful way to do it. Because I would agree with the example they gave here that, yes, you're going to have evade teams be more bulky than they used to. That even if it's not an area unit res, maybe it's an area unit res and a magic res that you couldn't formerly have. So you might be able to stack up some more mitigation things there, particularly in the subslots, where if you add up some of those, area or unit res in the subslots. But the alternative to that is that your enemy is also going to proportionally be increasing, let's say, a 60% attack card that they couldn't formerly put in that team. All of a sudden, that 60% attack card is offsetting your 20 unit res. All things considered, probably roughly equal in terms of the net effect of things. But I would agree. I think there are going to be some teams that do have more options than they used to in terms of gearing more comprehensively.
I do think that evade is going to suffer. Once this change goes live, I absolutely think that's going to happen, and it's mostly because like we were just looking at that ninja group, it just hasn't gotten anything since Yuffie basically, and that's where it's sitting. There are other evade characters in the game like Lucio and 2P. They'll probably still be okay because they're a bit more bulky than the ninja style evaders. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I would think you adding in, let's say, a 20% evasion card, your enemies are probably putting in a 20% accuracy card. You're putting in a luck card. Well, now they can also put in a luck card. And so I think it's toe to toe equal. But then again, that's where some of the, I guess, team theory crafting would come in, where are the vision cards applicable to all 5 units? You're not building an evade team of 5. Maybe you are. Or, even if you have your support team, are they there's some considerations about the team build that I think we're gonna have to think through. But math wise, I think it's gonna be equal. So this was a comment that was left that is a good topic to go over. It's really already hard to build old vision cards for new players. We agree. We've talked about that. With this new system in place, those players will have a steeper hill to climb to feel like they can compete on any level whatsoever. That I also theoretically agree with, which can contribute to the further stagnating of the player pool in this game. It's fixable. It's something the devs have needed to look at for ages anyway. But unless they do this, it's disastrous for new players. I think that's a slight overreaction. I mean, if the thought is that it's going to be the difference between a new player competing with other players. I would venture to say 4 extra vision cards isn't the difference. It's probably the UR items. It's probably the awakening of certain vision cards. It's probably the selection of espers. Like a new player, I think, is so far behind that I don't think 4 vision cards is the difference between them maintaining any competitive ground with anybody in the player base. And I know they're hard to acquire and build, relatively speaking. But yeah, we've seen guilds that are ranked in the 100 range, and 4 extra vision cards isn't what's wrong with them. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of fundamental things from a new player perspective and how they build and how they have access to that I agree with all the statements this person has made, but I don't think it's disastrous for new players. I think it's what I'm trying to get at.
I think that they can offset some of that, potential, problem with more free vision cards, which, like we talked about earlier, that's something they have done recently. Is that going to be something they continue to do? Of course, we don't know that yet. Hopefully it is, and hopefully that's kind of their thought with expanding the VC pool, that they want to give out more of these freebies from time to time, and that is a way that they can offset the costs there, in terms of their development. Um, I don't know. I do agree that it is a challenge, but that is, like you said, that's part of the totality of building up your accounts. Do you expect, newer players to be able to compete with year 4 veterans? I don't think they should be, and they need to catch up, over time. But Gumi does need to address how long that takes them to catch up. That is really the problem. We have been seeing more catch up banners and things recently. I think that we need more catch up vision card banners. I think that's what's been deficient. We've seen the unit 120s and select units. It's been very much less when it comes to select vision cards and things like that. So I do hope that as we come into these anniversary and events, that we see more of that stuff coming in.
I would agree totally. And then the follow up to that was that most job classes can barely put together a team of 3, much less a team of 5. They just spent the last year trying to build out these job groups and are now implementing a guild war system that will make using the job groups even harder. It'll also make pulling the new job based vision cards almost entirely necessary, which is in no way a player friendly move. I want to break this into 2 parts if you don't mind, and I want to quickly talk about the second half of this statement because we just recently talked about this. That pulling new hollow vision cards is almost entirely necessary. I would completely agree with that. This new Oberon vision card that just came out isn't a great vision card. It's a skip for most, but it's 60% attack for this team. If you could all of a sudden put that vision card in a main slot on a backup unit, your team is a fair amount stronger because now all of a sudden you're taking these former sub slot vision cards and now putting them in the main slot. And even in the sub slot, you might have not been using them at all, maybe using something else because the 20% wasn't worth the 60%, or whatever, the 30%. You get the point. But yes, I do agree with that point. It does make all of a sudden these hollow vision cards a lot more impactful. It makes, but to be fair, all vision cards more impactful. I don't think it's specifically hollow vision cards. So
Yeah, I mean there is, we do have you can the comparable for that 60% attack Oberon card is Ifrit at 50% attack. Are you giving up some additional bonuses with like crit damage and like better bestows and all the other things that are on that card? Yes. But you can also use it on much fewer units than you can a card like Ifrit. So there is a little bit of trade-off there. When you're having it in that reserve slot, is it that impactful? I'd say when you add up multiple cards doing that same thing, probably. But for a single card, I think that you can fill in some of those holes with older cards as long as you're not doing it too much. If you're trying to compete, at a high level.
totally agree. Totally agree. Right. We made that mention. Is it worth pulling the new vision card? Like, no, just use the effort vision card. It's gonna achieve 80% of the same goal for you for the average player. So I completely agree with you on that perspective. The whole job class thing, though, I think this is still a tough hurdle for people to conceptualize in terms of putting together a team of 3 or 5. I still think people are trying to think of like, oh, it's a katana vision card. I need 3 katana players. No, 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 no. That's not how this works. You very much blend and mingle various classes together. They don't all get the attributes. That's okay. They don't all need the attributes. That's also okay. But I think that's still something that a lot of people need to like kind of either see more of, which hopefully we can bring some visibility to, like us doing the Devout and Greatsword team earlier that you showcased. But not all units need all attributes. Not all units need to be in the cards. That's actually low key one of the nice thing about the buff power creep that we've seen in the game, is that the buffs have virtually like overtaken the impact of some of the vision cards because of how strong the buffs are. That okay, so your unit doesn't get the 10 crit evade on the card, the 15 crit evade on the card, but their support buff gives them crit evade. So they net effect, like, are they losing out if they had it? Sure, but like they're still getting some. We've seen a lot of that. I can't give you a concrete example, but I know that part of the buff power creep has alleviated the losing out on vision cards. So I know that's my first thought about this.
This first part of the sentence, you know, in terms of like implementing job groups and I think that we have to understand that, you know, the whole job system is like a slow burn that they've been implementing, that they really didn't want to completely invalidate mono element because we spent 3 years building up our mono element cards and units. And if they just completely brought in this whole job meta on like they did with EX, and when they kind of brought in the mono element era to begin with, um, it would have felt pretty bad, I think, that you know, all of a sudden I can't play my mono element at all. It's trash. It's no good anymore. We've seen it be a slow burn system where over time, you know, they're just continuing to get better, and the effects are compounding on themselves, and those teams are really starting to come into their own recently. Adding 2 slots does sort of extend that out a little bit, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing for most players because you know, most players haven't been able to really invest all that much yet into that system. So I don't know. I think that there's some pros and cons to it.
Yeah, I agree. I still think the system is complex, and which is why most people stick with mono element. If we didn't have your spreadsheet to see quickly the grouping, the characters on a vision card, the filter system makes it very difficult to theory craft. There's no publicly available stuff. I have a spreadsheet that I use, but it's not available to be used online because of like the certain query functions that I use. So I would agree to the average player, it's still very cumbersome. So I know it seems like it, I think the best we can do is still just keep bringing visibility to it, and talking about it, and maybe showing some teams. Maybe there's some public tools that get made eventually to try to alleviate that. But I don't think it's all or nothing for the job classes. You obviously still use a bunch of mono element cards in these job classes, regardless. I really do think it's just that mental block of being like, I need all three of the same, and you just don't. Strike is kind of unique. That sure you can put 3 strike units in, but they're a unique job class. The rest of them, that's why we talk about roll compression. You got Sword Red Mage that has some roll compression. You got A2 now, it's got some roll compression. You got these supports that like can fit anywhere. Shells does not need 10 vision cards to do her job. Shells needs
Yeah.
like 2 vision cards to do her job. So
That was actually the point that I was just going to bring up, is that I think some players think that it's like all or nothing with the, like they have to have all 6 slots filled in with, you know, the ideal job cards that are going to touch on every single unit in the group. It's really not the case at all. Like, you know, some of the teams that we've been building at the top end of the game are including older cards like Odin and like Golem, and some of these year 1 cards that, you know, you're filling in because you can get some value like in the sub slot, and you know, you really don't need the area resist to touch on your support unit that, you know, if she's getting hit, you know, the game's over anyway. Like you're really trying to maximize your carry units at that point, and you know, you're working with, you know, with what we have, and you don't necessarily have the cards yet to be able to build around everyone.
right, totally. But
So
yeah, it's a complex topic. That's why I want to talk about it more in depth here. We feel your pain though, because it obviously is daunting at first, because it's already daunting to some degree right now with only 6 in terms of putting together these job based vision cards. But yeah, that's our thoughts on everything. We got a lot coming in this week. That's all we wanted to cover tonight, at least. Hopefully these good topics, good showcases. Was this a little fun to watch some stuff play out? But yeah, any other final thoughts coming into the last week here?
I don't think so. I mean, we got a busy week with the game this week, a lot of PvE stuff, so I'll be busy doing that. And Otherwise, we'll see you guys next time.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys in arena. Have a good night, everyone.